Hi, my name is Jonnie Hurn. I played a peasant in one episode of Allo'Allo in the final series. It was only named as peasant. I think it's peasant number 2, maybe peasant number 3. I can't remember which one, but that was my official role, was peasant in one episode. I actually didn't do it the normal way. I didn't have to audition for this. There were 3 peasants in the scene, and one of them was played by a guy who was my agent at the time. And for some reason, I don't know how, I think he must have known one of the producers or known somebody associated with Allo'Allo. They just said to him, look, we have these 3 characters, different ages. Look, they got a couple of lines each. Just cast them with whoever you want. And he just phoned me up and said, do you want to be in Allo'Allo? And I was, like 20 years old, and I'd grown up watching this series. My parents were obsessed by it. They loved it, and still do. And I'd grown up watching all of the the Croft and Perry sitcoms. They were a staple in our household. So when I get this call to say, do you want to be in Allo'Allo, I was like, yeah, obviously I want to do that. So that was it. I didn't have to audition at all. And then the next thing I knew, this huge package arrives from the BBC with the full script in it, even though I'm only in just one scene. They sent the whole script, which I still have. It says at my parents' house. And so there was, I grew up in a little village, and so there was, gossip all around the village. Oh, did you know that he's got a package from the BBC? Oh yeah, it's a script from Allo'Allo, and it was everybody knew about it, and that was it. That was the only kind of I didn't do any kind of audition. I was just very, very lucky that my agent at the time had been offered the chance to cast these roles, and he asked me to do it because I was sort of the right age and fitted for it, and that was it. And it was a fantastic opportunity, which I love doing. I mean, it's in the final series. The episode, I think, is called René Artois is Still Dead, and in the context of the bigger story, René, I think he's on the run from the Germans for some reason, and he's faked his own death, and is pretending to be the English police officer, or the English guy who pretends to be the French police officer, and he's going around the village asking people for collections for a memorial to René Artois, and there's a big sort of procession for his funeral and everything, and of course he goes around the villagers and gets to us, and nobody gives him any money, and he gets to us, and then the 3 of us refuse to give any money, and then explain why we don't want to give any money, and we've each got our reasons, and very, very sort of dismissive of René, not in the context of the story, not knowing of course that it's René pretending to be this guy, even though it's fairly obvious. And I think I said sort of like he was no friend of mine, obviously in a cod French accent, which you have to do, and something about him watering his wine or something. Yeah, and we each had our own lines, and then the procession sort of carries on, and I remember it was a very, very big scene. The whole scene was quite a big one, and it was all outside and had a lot of the main cast there. So it was we had just sort of a small section, sort of a minute or so. But I remember we filmed it met quite a few times, because there were 3 of us. There was Gordon Kay as well as René, and we each of us we had our own single shots for our lines, and there were the wide shots and 2 shots. So we must have, I think we did it sort of 12-15 times altogether, this bit, but of course it just went by so quickly, and then it just we moved on to the next bit, and we were then back in the background with all the other sort of peasants and extras that were there. Our scene was completely on location. It was up at the main place in Norfolk, and I remember driving up there the night before. We stayed in a hotel, and then got taken to the set, and it's the one that they built of the village square. And this is something I'd watched on TV for years, and then suddenly I'm there in this this village square, and it's great to whenever you're on a shoot, and it's something that you're aware of and you've seen. I was, oh yeah, there's the cafe and there's the shop and there's the fountain in the middle of the square, and so the whole thing was outside, and a lot of people there. There were a lot of extras, a lot, big crew there, and yeah, but it was all just the exterior, the facades of all the buildings. So and in the grounds of this some big manor, whose name I've forgotten, but they sort of built this set there, so you could, in the distance you could see the big manor house, but they sort of cordoned off probably the stable yards or something like that. I don't know exactly. So yeah, we shot everything was all outside all day. Luckily the weather was good. It was sort of, I think, early September time when we did it, so the weather was good. But I do remember we had to wait because the sun came out and it was ruining the continuity, because it'd been cloudy and then the sun came out and we had to pause while the clouds came back. I had a really good experience doing this. Our little part of the scene was directly with Gordon Kay, who was playing René, pretending to be the policeman, and he was lovely. I remember he when we had a little rehearsal, and then just before we actually shot our part, he sort of leant into the three of us. He didn't know who we were. We're just three people who turned up, and he said, "Two goldfish in a tank." One says to the other, "How do you drive this thing?" And I mean, it's a terrible joke, but it kind of really relaxed us, put us at ease, and and I thought it was a really lovely thing for him to do. He didn't have to do that. He was, the star of the show. He was a big star in the country. I mean, he didn't need to do anything like that. We were nothing to him, but the fact that he did that just to kind of relax us into the scene, I think it was a really lovely gesture. And and then I mean, because it was a big parade, it was the funeral of René Artois. A lot of the main cast were there. So you had Vicky Michelle, you had Silvera Carmen, Guy Seiner, the other German guys, Kenneth Connor, I remember there, who my parents had loved Kenneth Connor from all the Carry On movies, and so chance that he was there. And so I mean, it was a lot of the main cast were there, so I was very lucky that they were all there, and they were all just really lovely. I had when we had the lunch break, I remember I walked onto the very glamorous dining bus, which where you eat on a film shoot, and I looked around, and there wasn't anywhere to sit, and then Gordon Kay and Vicky Michelle were sat on a table, and they just said, "Oh, come and join us." And you know, you on a lot of shoots, you wouldn't. There's no way that the star of the show would just let somebody like me come and sit next to them. Somebody who just had two lines in one episode. But they would, no, come and join us, and we sat, and I had lunch with them, and they were just lovely, and it was just, the whole thing was just really really nice experience, and they're just a great bunch of people to work with. Um, I always like the characters that have the catchphrases, the lines. Like Michelle's. Yeah, I shall say this only once. I always like because they're going to say it, and that's kind of part of the gag, the on-running joke. But the one I think the one I really liked was Leclerc, because he was always in disguise, but his disguises were always terrible, and you always knew immediately that it was him. But he would always, at some point in the scene, he would then just go, "Hi, Leclerc," as though it was some like great reveal. Because for him, in his mind, he was in this fantastic disguise, and and I love that kind of, that this line is coming, and it's just at what point is he going to reveal to the other people that actually know it's me, Leclerc, when of course everybody knows that it's him to start with. So I always kind of like that naivety of him. And I actually spent a lot of time in France, and Leclerc is the name of a supermarket chain in France. And when I first saw it, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, no, it's just, every time I see a Leclerc supermarket, I just always think of Allo'Allo, because it's just such an an unusual name. But yeah, I think I really liked him. I just like his naivety of it, believing this world that he's created when when it's complete nonsense. Well, I'd grown up watching their series, and Croft and Perry mainly, but the Croft and Lloyd as well. And you know, as I say, our family, we watched every episode of Allo'Allo. It was, you know, we watched it religiously. My parents loved it, and the fact that I think actually my parents were more excited than I was in a way, because it was my parents' favorite TV show, and the fact that their son, you know, 20-year-old kid, was in this and had a scene with, you know, Gordon Kay. I mean, they absolutely adored it. And even now, doesn't matter what I do in my life, I will never achieve anything as great as having been in Allo'Allo for my parents. That for them, that is I can't do anything better than that, because they loved it so much. I don't think they may have been on set. Croft and Lloyd. I don't think so. They certainly, David Croft didn't direct this episode. He directed some early ones. They may have been on set. I don't know. But just a chance to a chance to read a whole script was lovely. You know, to have that sent through the post, even though I had just one scene, that was great to be able to just read their work, having watched it. And you know, as I say, I grew up watching all of their stuff. You know, we've always watched It Ain't Half Hopman. We always watched Are You Being Served? Dad's Army is still my father's favorite TV show. If it ever comes on TV now, he will watch it, even though he's seen every episode, you know, dozens and dozens of times. He will watch it because it's his favorite show. So that kind of humor has always been a part of my life, and so the chance to actually, albeit in a tiny way, to be a part of that is, you know, even now, you know, nearly 30 years ago, I still remember it fondly. And actually, whenever anybody, you know, finds out that I was in an episode of Allo'Allo, it doesn't matter what age they are, they always like, oh my god, you were in Allo'Allo, what did you know, people always really, you know, but they can look down the list of all the things that I've done as an actor, and they'll pick out on Allo'Allo, because that's the one thing that everybody knows. And even abroad, in fact, I spoke to somebody a couple of days ago. She's from New Zealand, and she knew about Allo'Allo, you know. And it's so I kind of love the idea of being, as I say, albeit a tiny part, but a part of something that is so globally known and so recognized that you know, it's great to just have the honor to be a part of something like that. One thing that I do remember is there are a lot of regular extras, supporting artists, who were there. And when we turned up, the three of us, of course, we were unknown. Nobody knew who we were. And we were dressed the same as all these, you know, a lot of these supporting artists. And I remember them sort of looking at us very suspiciously, because you know, I've done extra work many times. And it is like a little cabal. It's like a, you know, a little clique, and they're very territorial. And I remember them, they spotted us, and then you know, they would sort of, oh, they see Gordon, they go, oh, hello Gordon, how are you? Or Kenneth, hello Kenneth, how are you doing today? All this sort of thing, to really kind of make it known to us that it was their territory, that they were the regular extras, and that they were, you know, they'd been there for years and years and years, and that we were the outsiders. It was, they wouldn't, you know, really almost wouldn't talk to us. You know, we were left by ourselves. And then you know, we were in the scene in the parade and whatever, the sort of wide shots they did, and we just sort of mingled in. And then when I think it was must have been the first assistant director said, oh, can we have our 3 speaking peasants? Suddenly all of these supporting artists were looking around to see who is it, because when you do extra work, you crave the chance to have a line. You want to be in the scene, you want to say something, you want to be part of it, partly because you get extra money, but also because, you know, that's the status that you want to achieve as an extra. You want to have a line. And they all looked around, and suddenly the 3 of us stepped forward, and the looks that we got from the rest of the extras, it was absolutely filthy looks. It's like, how dare these people turn up and then have lines? And I genuinely overheard one of them a little later saying, well, I've been doing this for years, why didn't I get a line? It's like, well, it's kind of cast in a different way. It's, you know, if it's a scripted character, you know, it has nothing to do with the extras, but that kind of, that almost that seething jealousy that the rest of the extras had at us, because we were these newcomers, we just turned up and we were the ones that had the lines, and you know, why couldn't they have the lines? And I understand, you know, if you've been doing it, you know, every year for 9 years, you'd been on set with these people, you know, you'd probably feel a little bit aggrieved that you weren't asked to do something. But it was very funny with the kind of the looks that we got. I wasn't, unfortunately. No, I would love to have. I mean, most of them I would have been too young anyway. But the ones that came after Allo'Allo, so like Grace and Favour, for example, yes, I would have been, age wise, I would have been able to do that. But I never had the chance to do it again, and I would love to have done it. I would have thankfully done it. And actually, I wasn't supposed to do the Allo'Allo episode because I was still at theatre school. I just finished my first year at theatre school, and one of the rules was that you weren't allowed to do any external work, certainly any paid work. And when I was offered, I thought, I've got to do it because it's Allo'Allo. I'm not gonna, not gonna say no. But so I had to kind of keep it secret, and it was during the summer break, so it was okay. But I had to keep it secret and not mention it. But I would have loved to have done something else because, as I say, it was part of my childhood. Their sitcoms, and had I been 10 years older, 20 years older, then I would have loved to have been in any of them, any of the, because I always, always made me laugh, and I always loved the sitcoms. But there weren't many after Allo'Allo, and I was in the final series of it. So it's a shame, but I would have genuinely loved to have done more. Funny enough, I do get royalties still from this. Every year I'll get a check. It's not a lot. It's it's a few quid, but every year I get to have a few drinks or I get to go out for dinner. Because of something I did 30 years ago nearly. And it's interesting that it's something like that that you do get repeat money for it. It's because you don't get it in theatre, you don't get it in film. But with TV, it's only a few quid every year. But it's interesting that I've had it because it was sold to some Croatia or something, or some DVD release or whatever. With it being on TV in the UK, a couple of years ago I was at my parents with my wife and our daughter, and of course an episode of Allo'Allo comes on the TV just by chance. They flip the channels and it starts, and of course my parents, we'll watch this, and we get about 2 minutes into it. And I said, this is the episode I'm in. And of all of the series, of all the episodes, it just happened to be the one that I'm in when we sat down and, just randomly switched the TV on. And I said, great. My daughter was sat there like, that's you? I was like, yeah, I told you I'd done this. But she didn't really sort of comprehend what it meant when I said I'd done this until it was suddenly on TV in front of her. And she was like, but that's you. It was, so it's, I do get, a little bit of royalties, but it's not so much the money. It's I like the idea that it's something that's gone around the world. I like the idea that even now, nearly 30 years later, people are still watching it, and it still makes people laugh, and that's all you can ask for. I'm not saying that I make people laugh in my scene, but the whole thing. It's lovely that the different generations can watch it, and and I hope it still lasts, and I hope it will continue to be shown around the world. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And thank you for being interested, because it amazes me still that after all this time, people are still interested in even something as a tiny part that I had, that people still want to talk about it, and still want to get any kind of memories or anything they can from this iconic series. And it is an iconic series, and so it's an absolute pleasure to talk about it. And even though it was nearly 30 years ago, I still look back on it fondly, and I still remember that time, and because it was a period of my life that I really enjoyed, and it's happy memories that I'll always keep.